Hello and welcome again to Money Talks with me, George Pitcher, and a delight as always to welcome Edmund Shing, our resident pundit. Welcome, Ed. Ed, you've written for us this week on IB Times UK about the prospect of the government's remaining sell-offs of stakes that it holds in the banks and indeed in other assets such as Royal Mail. Now, it seems that Chancellor George Osborne wants to get some money in, and presumably he needs to get some money in to fulfil his election promises of spending up to 12 billion or finding 12 billion for our public services, 8 billion for the national health and so on. So is that what's driving this? Is he having to get some money in sharpish?
I think he is, George, because he wants to give himself some leeway. I think in future budgets, he wants to be able to look back and say, we sold these assets off, we had got a fantastic price, and that allows us maybe to ease up on some of these prospective cuts and still make our budget targets. I think that's the idea. And don't forget, George, that the UK government is sitting on £1.56 trillion of debt. Now, that's 1.56 thousand billion pounds. I mean, it's such a colossal number. My brain explodes just thinking about it.
Yes, it's more than you earn in a month. But how much would he get in? Is it just a drop in the ocean then in terms of the deficit?
Yes, of course it is. I mean, we're talking about this colossal number. Even if you took the market values of the remaining stakes today in Royal Bank of Scotland, in Lloyds Bank, and in Royal Mail, you put them all together, sold them all off at current prices, you'd still only get £46 billion. A lot of money, but when you put it next to the debt, it's not going to make that much. It's about 3% of the debt.
Okay, so where's the action for the investor on this? Where should we be looking for opportunities to invest when he gets into his big sell-off?
Well, obviously, he's going to try to sell off those three stakes. In order, Royal Mail, he has 30% left to sell. There's a very good dividend yield. So for an income investor, you get over 4% a year if you buy even at the current price. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, did you know that the Royal Mail are probably sitting on something around £1 billion of spare property assets they could sell off? Oh, okay. They've already started to sell off, and I think they've sold something £111 million worth last year. They could sell off a lot more around London. Right. Sites that could be redeveloped.
So it's a property play as well.
So it's also a property play. So I actually out of the three, I'd put Royal Mail number one.
Well, just before you get to the other two, I remember Royal Mail, something of a scandal really. It suggested that Royal Mail was sold off by the government stake in Royal Mail sold off far too cheaply.
Well, George, if you remember, the price of the IPO when it was brought to market was £3.30. Yeah. And it is true that it went to nearly £5 pretty much directly thereafter. So, of course, 50% up, you have to ask yourself, did the government really get value for money? But having said that, people woke up to the fact that the post office is under increasing competition. It then dipped, and only recently has it got back near to that £5 level.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether all the money to be made by investors out of Royal Mail had already been made.
I'm not so sure about that, George.
Because of the property?
Because of the property. I think that's the hidden asset. Royal Mail could become a lot more productive and more profitable, but the real gem, I think, are those hidden property assets. Okay,
and what are the other two in Osborne's family silver?
Well, as you said, the banks. Firstly, Lloyds Bank. Now, Lloyds Bank, I think, is more interesting. There's 19% of Lloyds Bank remaining to be sold by the government. Right. They have guaranteed that this will be done within the next 12 months, and there will definitely be a retail offer, just like Telsid with British Gas or with British Telecom in the good old days. So there is an opportunity there, potentially, for private investors to wait for the government retail offer and to buy in at a discount to today's 87p share price.
It's a bit reminiscent of the 1980s and the big privatisation programme under Mrs Thatcher, isn't it?
Exactly. And I think, George, that the Chancellor has every incentive to offer a substantial discount to seduce private investors, because let's not forget, it was our money that they used to bail out the banks in the first place. So at least they could give us some of it back individually by allowing us to buy shares cheaper.
So that's how it goes round, Ed, isn't it? I mean, these assets were in the private sector, and then after the 2008 crisis, they're in the public sector, and we're getting them back at a discount again.
Well, you know what? I'd rather have them back in the private market and get the government's hands off them, because in general, when you look across stock markets, governments are very poor stewards of value, right? Yeah. They just don't know what to do with shares and companies, and they usually do the wrong thing. So the quicker they get out, the better for all of us.
Very good. Thank you for that, Ed, as always. So there you have it, some opportunities in the banks and the stake in the Royal Mail, that, or indeed Royal Mail further to go as a property play. Thank you very much, Ed, for your recommendations this week, and thank you for watching.